I think we need to start by applauding again, I think, for a gorgeous show yesterday. Applause to the Dior team and Maria Grazia Chiuri.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we are thrilled to have with us today two illustrious personalities from the fashion industry to help us discuss a topic that we are super passionate about at Istituto Marangoni, Mumbai. And we strive to engage our students every day through our courses. So without further delay, Indian craft in the global fashion industry, Imran Amed in conversation with Maria Grazia Chiuri. Thank you.
Hi everyone, how are you doing? Okay, yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much to Istituto Marangoni in Mumbai for hosting us today. It's a pleasure to see all of you here. Last night, I think, was a historic moment for fashion, a historic moment for India, and a historic moment for fashion in India. I was thinking about it, and it reminded me of 2007, when Fendi did a show at the Great Wall of China. And that set off more than a decade of growth and excitement for the Chinese fashion market. This feels like a similarly important moment. India, over the next decade, will be the fastest growing major economy in the world. And so here we are to mark an important decade for fashion in India. But the truth is that the fashion industry has a long history with India, often hidden away in the background. For decades, major luxury brands have been making some of the most sophisticated, some of the most beautiful, some of the most intricate and special pieces here, and then taking them back to Europe for final assembly, and often labeling them made in France or made in Italy. But for Maria Grazia Chiuri, the artistic director of women's at Dior, she has taken a completely different approach, and it's a much more personal story. The work that she has done here is now part of the Dior story. That's one of the reasons this show has happened here, and putting a spotlight on the incredible Indian artisans whose creativity and talent makes these clothes possible. So I want to congratulate you, Maria Grazia. I think for anyone who's Indian or of Indian ethnicity or Indian background, this is a really, really special acknowledgement of everything that happens here.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for everything.
So I guess, first of all, how are you feeling? I mean, I know that you were anticipating the show for a very long time. It's been something you've been dreaming about. It's now happened.
Finally.
How are you feeling today?
Oh, we are really happy because we worked very hard with all the team, but also because it's a dream that we have from a long time. This show is, for me, is very personal, like you say. It's not a simple fashion show. It speaks about this important collaboration that I have from a long time with Karishma and Nehal, with this incredible family and also company, and those that they are really my friend, and also because we grew up together.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
We really, our creativity and our discussion about creativity was so important in my career. I started to work with them in 1992.
So you were at Fendi at the time when
Yes.
you first met her.
Yes.
When was your first trip? Tell me about the impressions you had your first trip to India. I know you come here all the time because you love it here, but what were your first impressions?
But the first impression was about the country was magnificent because I felt immediately in love. And also because immediately I went here the first time and I met with Nehal. And I went also to visit immediately the atelier. I was shocked to see all men.
Yeah.
I remember so strong this image that when I arrived, I was so surprised because in Italy. Part of my family come from South Italy, and we have this tradition, but all women.
Yeah.
So when I arrive, I say, "Oh, Neal, but are all men?" And this started to explain me that this tradition in India is passed from father to the son. And I started to speak about the tradition in Italy. So it was not only about conversation, only about fashion, but really about all our tradition that was similar but different. We really grew up together in some way.
Yeah. You know, I often say to my Italian friends that there's a lot in common
Yes.
between the Indian culture and the Italian
Yes, it's
culture. Like
true.
there's this really interesting compatibility.
Yes, it's true, because Italy is composed from different regions. In each region is a very strong identity.
Yeah.
And the same thing in India, but with big dimension, is
Yeah.
a continent. Each state inside the continent a very strong identity and difference, but are all connected and they live all together in one country. This is, I think, is beauty. Also in Italy is the same. There is a big difference between Puglia, Lazio and Lombardia, but here from Butara and Kutch or South India is completely different.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting that you mentioned those regions because you know, in India and in Italy, like different regions are known for different traditions, different crafts, and as you said, these traditions have been passed down from generation to generation to generation for hundreds and hundreds of years. So talk to me about craft and craft in India, because I think when we talk about design in the West, we often focus on silhouettes, or we focus on color, or we focus on shape, but we don't often
Volume.
talk about the craft. And craft in India is, you know, the design process, the creative process, it starts with the textiles, it starts with those traditions.
Yes, it's true, but I think because the narrative in fashion was very close with the narrative in art. So
Yeah.
the idea that sculpture is more important than painting, and in some way fashion to also to be closer with art, in some way started a narrative that is very similar also in art. So the cut, the volume, the sketch, but we never speak about the other part of the process, the creative process, that could be textile, but also embroidery too. So the idea was that embroidery is only embellishment, it's a decorative element. And decorative in the word, especially in Italian, means something that is not relevant.
Right, it's something you just put on top.
On top,
Yeah.
that is not part of the construction of the look of the object, of the process. I think this is the big mistake. We had to consider that all the different aspects you can use and you can work in creative way. It's not necessary only to make a sculpture, but you can do also picture and to express your creativity. In fashion is the same, but with different elements.
So when it comes to craft, I mean, you have the opportunity working in a historic house like Dior to work with the best craftspeople, artisans in the world. In your view, what makes Indian craft unique and special? Like, why do you choose, you could choose anybody, why do you choose to do work here? To explain this argument is just a little bit complex because when we speak about fashion, we speak about a system that everybody thinks is the same everywhere. But fashion system in Italy is very different from fashion system in French. Yeah.
Probably when I arrived in Dior, I understood more about my background, probably because I found not in my safe territory. And I started to study also the point of view of French culture in fashion. I was more, for me, it was more familiar Indian background than French background.
Right.
I think Indian has a huge history, 6,000 history in textile style and embroidery. This is part of the culture. But in the Indian country, but also in Italian country, we think about this argument like artisan, no inside the cultural element of the country. In French, it's completely different. Fashion is part of the cultural element.
Yeah.
That made a completely different point of view.
Yeah, because you're starting with a different...
Immediately, I was really fascinated, they promote this heritage, the métier d'art.
Right.
The métier d'art is an important initiative of the group to celebrate. They have a museum, des Arts Décoratifs museum.
Exactly, yeah.
In Italy, we don't have it.
Right.
So, but we don't have also the museum fashion. So,
Right.
so it's completely different, the approach that the country has with fashion, but not only fashion show, with all the system, and what happened in Italy and also in India too.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So you mentioned earlier, Karishma and Nehal from Chanakya, who you've had this relationship with now for more than 2 decades. Talk to me about how, I was walking through the exhibition yesterday, looking at, some of the really historic garments, and then also some of the very modern creations that you and Chanakya and Dior and Chanakya kind of co-create. And you managed to create something that looks extremely modern, but is using these ancient techniques. Can you talk to us about how the creative process actually works? That you're working with these these artisans here who have these ancient traditions, but you're trying to bring something modern.
I think it's important to know very well the history of fashion, the history of the brand like Dior. I know very well the archive, but at the same time you have to move in the future. You have to bring some element to mix with your personal point of view. I think in other case you create a piece of archive. You've made a piece of the museum. It has no sense. I think you have to study about the construction, about also many different elements of the archive, but at the same time you have to change it with your personal view. And that's what's happened also with embroidery. We mix also the different technique, because in this way we can create something new. In the collection we use some technique that are very specific of Gujarat that we mix with some technique that come from Kutch. And we create a new kind of modern embroidery that was not done before. So I think it's very important. And also left, especially in embroidery, you have you can very use the creativity in a way that is incredible, because it's it's like knitwear. It's something that is very flexible.
Right.
And is made by hand.
Right.
So you don't need a program, you don't need also big investment. It's not only necessary big passion, big creativity, and you can do it.
It feels very experimental, like you come and you try things and you see what's going to happen.
Yes, that is beautiful. And also because I don't know that, I will see also in the exhibition, like the embroidery can define also the volume, can define also the silhouette.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you put on top,
Right.
but it's something that you can create and to build, because you really can realize the shape also with embroidery.
So, practically speaking, how does it work? So do they, when you do these experiments, you say, we're going to try this with this, or we're going to do this embroidery with this completely different material. Do they send you swatches and then you decide, how does it work?
No, the work, we are all the time in contact. Karishma and I come to Paris, we come to India. The team also, because I have a big team, because we are not to forget, I have 100% for team. I have accessory team, haute couture, pret-à-porter. Also this, they are very flexible to experimental in a different category that has a different also limit. We work with some idea and we start a conversation. We made a research together in the archive, but also in the book, in some image. We made some drawing together. It's really co-working to create all the collection. After arrived the final piece. I'm very happy and I'm very lucky because there is one specific team that work with me from 92. So they know very well me.
Right.
So they know what I like. They really understand immediately. It's very important, the human relation that you have, but also in the atelier in Paris with the premiere. It's the same thing for embroidery, to have this kind of relationship that they understand you and you understand them. Is very, very important.
So it starts with the human connection, basically.
Absolutely. It's a dialogue.
Yeah.
They put their creativity, they give their point of view, but also in the atelier when you arrive with a sketch, in any case, the premiere put in his creativity in the toile.
Yeah. Well, I think this is what's not fully understood, because sometimes we refer to artisans and we just think that they're executing on a plan. They're actually themselves creative.
I think this is the problem, that everybody, of course, this is very, for me, they are the top level. When we speak about also, for me, they are at the level of haute couture level for brand. We have also in Italy, in the other country, different level of brand, of atelier. This is for, but it's not an only the execution. They co-create with you.
Yeah.
I think this is is about the storytelling, that the designer is alone inside the room with a candle. You can do a sketch, that's it, or in front of the computer.
Yeah.
For me, this show is very important also for the new generation, because in the last 20 years, with so many images, so many video, there is an idea that fashion comes from the computer, that grow up from, no, is not real, it's very material work.
Yeah.
You have to work with the piece. We work in the office with the paper, with the sample of textile, with the stockman.
Yeah, so you're working with your hands, basically, right?
But when we speak about atelier, also the creative office is an atelier.
Yeah.
Not only the atelier where they realize the toile.
Yeah.
Where there are creative people is an atelier. But it's really material things.
Yeah.
I'm surprised when I see the studio that there are only computer.
Yeah.
You can do a collection only with a computer.
Yeah, you can't do a collection like the one we saw last night by computer, right? It takes. So last night's collection, I'm curious to understand, like, what elements of that collection were Dior? What elements of that collection for you were Indian? And what elements of that collection were Maria Grazia?
Probably is a mix between all.
Okay.
I don't think there is something that is specific. It's my personal vision about the project. There are some reflection that I do when especially in the silhouette, about the sari silhouette, because it's so linked with the idea of the toga and the idea of a peplo that we have also in Greece and Roman culture. I think sari and peplo are the first dress of humanity without gender, and also very that you can personalize. It's dependent, like you drape,
Yeah.
the material. I think this is fascinates me a lot, also because it's an element very close with the Mediterranean area, and also because I think it was important reference also for Miss Dior. If you see the drape that he made in top of the corset, in the construction of the evening dress, all this reference is evident that come from image of a statue where there was this kind of drape, and they re-elaborate with this point of view, but also in the other designer, in the history of fashion. So this is fascinating me. I did my personal view about this reference in a way more contemporary, more wearable, because I really believe in it. There are some references that come from the idea of a corset that is an important element on Dior, but in this case is an accessories because it's very simple. You can put naked on top of the skirt, but at the same time is linked also with the top that all the women use under the sari that is open on the back. There is an element that I really love, and it was the last look on the show, that is this little top that was cover of this magnificent flower that made the school of Chanakya, and they are done all in organza, magnificent, and is a reference of Miss Dior dress, because I like all the collection to put a dress that is Miss Dior dress, because Mr. Dior was so close with Catherine Dior, and I really love
his sister.
His sister,
yeah.
And I really love this reference. The palette color was chosen from Karishma. I called her, I say, please give me the palette color.
Yeah, I mean, there was that Rani pink color.
Rani pink.
There was that beautiful purple shade. There were the Madras checks. You know, the beautiful color.
But the thing that I really like in this part of my career in Dior is really to realize a big team work with all the people that work with me. So at the end, also the collection is really done in a really community way. Yeah. That's also my team is very strong. The participation of my team at this incredible
Yeah, I mean,
adventure.
that idea of this designer sitting in an ivory tower, directing everything from afar, and the genius, that is over, right?
For me personally, is over. I think that there are people that are fascinated about this image of themselves, and lucky them.
Yeah.
I think it's very... I think it's super boring. Yeah. Personally, and also for me it's old style. Remember me, 80, I am old in fashion. I started in fashion when I was 20. So probably I saw a lot of this kind of, because I worked with Karl Lagerfeld, Mr. Valentino, so I know very well all the fashion system. For me it's boring. Yeah. It's not my style, it's not what I like.
Well, I mean, it probably goes without saying, there's very few women in the fashion industry who hold a position like yours. And you know, going back to the original point that you made about walking into that atelier or that workshop here and seeing all men, I wanted to talk as well about the work you've been doing with Chanakya to train women in India to do something that only men have ever done here.
Yes, because at one point when I come back for holiday, no, for Christmas time, in 2016, in Mumbai, I met Karisma and Nehal, and there was the same problem that we have in Europe. A new generation, the atelier, a new generation of designer. In the company, you feel that there is, it's necessary to create a new generation.
Also to preserve the craft.
Oh, yes, but because you have premiere that are 16 years old, 65 years old, but also in accessory, in haute couture, in pret-à-porter. So it's very important to create a new generation. And it's not easy, honestly, because also for designer, it's the same, because they have an idea, probably because passed this idea by the social media, about this work that sometimes is just a little bit superficial. So they arrive with books that are only image, picture, but we can do a collection with picture. And they want to made only the premiere and to realize the toile, but we need the different professional aspect inside this industry. So also before that Dior, in Italy, I started with this idea to create a school inside the company where the people that has more expertise try to explain and to grab people that love this work and they want to continue. And Charisma said me, oh, I would like to create a school because in India too is the same situation. We found very difficult to find a second generation. And I say, oh, why we don't do for women?
Yeah.
And not for men.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, that's a great idea because also in Italy, women use craft and their creativity was so like domestic work. Not like creative work and also with opportunity to empower or to find a job. Was more closer with this idea of a domestic. And also in India too.
Yeah.
So we started in 2017 with a small classroom, and step by step, the school became a big reality. And it was very important also the COVID time.
Yeah.
Because I have to thank you a lot to Dior that supported me in this crazy project to work with the artists.
Yeah.
That was another important step for the school. Because immediately for them was another way to say like they can use their skill.
Yeah. It gives a sense of purpose and a sense of, I think the role of women, not just in India, but all around the world. I mean, as I said earlier, to have someone like you at the head of a house like Dior is still, unfortunately, very rare. So for you to take the opportunity to empower those women to have their own independence and way of making a living and having a sense of purpose and sense of skill.
But a sense also of creativity.
Of creativity, yeah.
I think this action help to the creativity of them.
Yeah.
Creativity is not only to be famous painter and to have an exhibition. Creativity is something that helps you to
express
yourself. I think this is very important.
Yeah.
Is something that helps to open your mind.
Yeah.
And to see yourself in a different way, and in the relations also with the other. And also this idea of a collective creativity is very important too.
Yeah.
What we can do together. I think is very strong, this aspect.
Well, we have a lot of young creative people here who look up to you as a role model, who look up to you as someone doing a job that maybe they want to do someday. I mean, before I open it up to questions from the students, what advice do you have to offer, Maria Grazia, for a young person who's sitting here imagining a career in the fashion industry, in the textile industry, in the creative industry? What does it take to be successful now in this world that we live in?
I think it's a very difficult question because when I started, this industry was so small, so familiar, that is completely different from today is another dimension. I think it's very important to start from yourself, to know very well what you really like, and also this is the first point. And also I think it's very important to start with experience, also in small company, not to be obsessed with a big name, because sometimes in the small company, you can understand more.
Yeah.
I was so lucky when I started to work with very small company. The first was a shoes company. After Chiara Boni, super small, and after Fendi, but at the time Fendi was very super small. And to have this incredible mentor like the Fendi sister, that really I learn more from them, sorry to say that from the school, because they helped me to realize, to test the thing, to really incredible mentor. And the same with Mr. Valentino after. I think it's very important not to be obsessed with a big brand, because I say also on my team, because in the big brand now it's very difficult that you have, yes, okay, you can have some mentor, but the dimension of a brand sometimes don't help to understand very well all the process.
Yeah, well, if you're in a big brand, you probably get to focus on one tiny thing.
Yes.
As part of a bigger system. If you're in a smaller company, you get exposed to everything.
Yes, what I at the beginning of my career with them, I did everything, from the sketch to go to the different company to understand the material, to the atelier, the showroom, everything.
Yeah.
So it's completely different. You understand very well all the process.
Well, the lessons I've learned is that craft can be the beginning of the creative process.
Absolutely.
That creativity can be collective. It can come from teamwork, not from the genius designer. And that the best way to learn is to start small so you can be exposed to everything, not necessarily to be obsessed with a big brand.
No.
Yeah.
For me, I was lucky that I arrived at Dior when I was 52 years old, with a big experience.
Yeah.
In other case, I think it's very difficult to stay and to manage a brand so big. My point of probably there is some genius, but I think if you are normal people, I think it's the complexity, and also the schedule, and also all the collect. It's not so simple.
Yeah. Well, Maria Grazia, on behalf of everyone here, I want to thank you. Before we wrap up, I think we have 4 questions from some of the students. So if we can go to the students to get those questions.
Hi, good afternoon.
Can you introduce yourself and speak up so everybody here can hear you?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dia. And my question to Maria Grazia would be that since she is the first woman to be appointed to lead the ateliers and design team in Dior, how does she think that she has changed the narrative while still maintaining the legacy of Dior?
How did you, you want to translate? Yeah.
I think the important point on this question is to think about this history of Dior. The history of Dior, when I arrived in Dior, was so conscious about how much Dior was important for the country, because it's very close with Paris, and Paris is very close with Dior. But this is part of the history of Dior, because you are not to forget that Dior born in 47, after the Second War, when Paris was completely destroyed. So Mr. Dior, with his silhouette that he made, that is the famous Dior silhouette, he would like to give hope for the future of the women that was very skin, but because it was after the Second World. So with this volume, he would like to give a body to the women. But in the other side, this body was also a way to think that it was the body of the women, but it's not true. The body of the women are different around the world. Everyone is different. So, and it was like to symbolize the idea of the feminism in idea of a body. a shape. I think feminism is more close with the idea of creativity, not with an idea of shape and volume. We are not to forget also that at the time, the picture that we have from of Dior come from American photographer, because Dior became immediately famous in America. So this idea of 50 that we have is more closer with the American vision of that French vision. Because at the same time, the women that was in Paris in 50 was completely different, because we have Juliette Greco, completely another idea, Catherine Dior, completely different from the image that is so strong and iconic, because we have to know very well the history of the brand, the history, what's happening in the country, to understand very well all the elements. So my work is to understand this element and to give also a new perspective about this history.
Okay, thank you. Next
Thank you so
question.
much. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ashna. I'm a fashion designing student here at Marangoni. First of all, congratulations for the splendid show yesterday. You have revolutionized the way Dior approaches to fashion by introducing feminism and women empowerment, whether it's by maybe using feminist slogans on t-shirts or supporting enterprises like the Chanakya School that promote women empowerment. I wanted to ask, what advice would you like to give to us emerging female fashion designers, especially Indian fashion designers, to how to go about in the fashion industry, which still to this day is a male-dominant industry in terms of design?
But, I don't think it's a problem only in India or only in fashion. It's a global problem in all the industry. We have to work hard. No other choice. No. Everything is more difficult.
The patriarchy is alive and well, yeah.
The real thing is that we have to work hard, but I hope in the future that it could be better for the new generation, but I have some doubts.
There's still a lot of work to do.
A lot, a lot. I hope that we have to stop to speak about women, men, no, talent or not talent, creative. I hope in the future. I hope.
Thank you. The third question, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Achintya, and I'm currently studying fashion business. So first of all, congratulations on an amazing show to you and the whole entire Dior team. So my question revolves around transparency. We know transparency is the biggest game changer currently in the industry, and Dior and Chanakya's collaborative partnership has set a trajectory overall globally as well as in India. What are the future steps that Dior is looking forward to? Thank you.
Dimmi? I completely agree with you. We have to be transparent. With Dior, we are really transparent. We post each under all the embroidery, also in the other collection, who realize, because we work also with the Vermont, with Urel in Paris. We have many other collaboration that is part. We have, for us, it's normal. We are, but it's more difficult, I think, for other situation. but not for us.
But Maria Grazia, it's a good question. Like, why? You've worked in a lot of other houses. You've seen a lot of the industry.
But
Why are we not crediting the work that happens here? Like, why is Dior one of the only brands that recognizes that the creativity and the contributions from here?
But because I think it's close with this idea of genius, designer alone. It's close with this idea because it's not. Also to say that you have a studio, no? Also the artist has a studio.
Yeah.
There are some famous artists that has a big studio.
Yeah.
Is impossible. Do you think that I can sketch personality, all the collection? It's not believable.
Yeah.
You have a team that work with you, that make the sketch, that made. But this is all the narrative.
Yeah.
You can believe that you can create one collection only inside one atelier.
Yeah.
It's not believable.
Yeah.
If you know the work, you know that it's not believable.
Yeah.
So, but it's close with this old narrative.
Yeah. So the future is collective creativity.
It's impossible
Yeah.
to realize all what we have many different ateliers.
Yeah.
We have the atelier in Italy for bags, shoes, jewelry atelier in German, in French. It depends about the dimension of the brand. If you are a small brand, probably you can have one atelier and that's it. But after is impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. One last question.
Good afternoon. So I am Ria from the fashion designing student. So my question is, Dior is a very craft-centric brand and is also an ode to craftsmanship. What we see on the runway is a lot of culture and textile all around. So what is your take on the future of crafts and textile language in the advancing digital age?
Oh, I believe a lot on it, also because, in my point of view, for a long time we spoke about fashion has to be democratic. I think there is a big mistake on it because the fashion never was democratic. Became more accessible. That's not means to be democratic. But the luxury brand a necessity of quality, necessity also one of a kind, because haute couture is one of a kind. So I really believe a lot in handmade. I think it also is less impactful too. So I think that for the future we have more handmade because the people want everything more personalized, more special. So for luxury and haute couture brand, because we are haute couture brand, I think there is no problem in this sense.
Craftsmanship matters even in the digital age. Okay, that is...
I don't believe so much in metaverso.
No,
I'm
not
sorry.
the metaverse is not your thing. All right, all right. That's good. That's good to know.
I'm sorry, but I am not so exciting to spend my time in the city of a metaverse.
Yeah, okay.
No? Why?
Yeah. Okay.
I prefer to go on the street.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Well, Maria Grazia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
On behalf of everyone. I just want to conclude by saying that I think, going back to how I started, this is a really important moment. And let's kind of remember that we were here to experience this, because I think historically this moment will be remembered for a very long time. And I'm personally super grateful to have been a part of it. And thank you for including all of us, and thank you for making time to share your insights with
I want to thank you, all the people that worked with me, Dior, that helped me to realize this incredible event and dreaming event. because nobody knows, but there are a lot of people that work on it.
Yeah.
And so thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the artists that collaborate with me. Thank you, really, everybody.